Today, Carl and Nick preview the Broncos' Week 8 matchup as the Denver Broncos travel to Kansas City in a huge divisional game, Monday Night Football, with the winner being tops in the division. You are listening to the Huddle Up Podcast.
Welcome to the Huddle Up Podcast, your go-to show for all things Broncos.
Once again, Broncos country, it is time to huddle up. I am Carl Dumler, and with me, as always, we have Nick Kendell. Nick, this really does feel like kind of a do-or-die situation, and I always hate being kind of that dramatizing something so early in the year because this is Game 7 of the year for the Broncos. But losing 3 straight games, 2 against the division. Defensive players have already started speaking out against coaches, and the offensive players, we've been hearing that there was quite a bit of yelling in the locker room after the game. Just sounds like this is a must-win to get this team back on track. Otherwise, this season could really tank real quick. Are you kind of feeling that same way?
Oh, absolutely. I was feeling that way last week after losing to the Giants and coming to play Denver West, which the stadium was pretty much all orange. The Denver Broncos had an opportunity to tie the Chiefs. Chiefs dropped the second one in a row after looking so great those first few weeks. A San Diego team, which is better than their record showed. I mean, if anybody listened to the podcast last week, you know that we both discussed that the Charger team was much better than what their record showed. But the Denver Broncos put up one of their worst performances on offense I have seen in ages. I can't even think of the last time the offense played that pedantic.
Maybe
I don't even know.
The 7-3 loss with Tim Tebow.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, we only crossed the foot 50. How many times? 3 times? It was bad.
Yeah, it was.
You're totally right. This game is, like you said, we don't want to overstate how important it is, but we can't understate it. I mean, if the Broncos lose this game and go to 3-4 on the season, with the next 2 games then being at Philadelphia, who looks like the best team in football right now, and then back to Denver to play New England and a team that looks like obviously, like they always do, getting it together, starting to look like a Super Bowl team under Bill Belichick and Tom Brady, one of the best offenses in the NFL so far this year. So Broncos, I mean, it's if you want to make the playoffs, if you want to win this division, for sure, they have to win Monday. If they lose this game Monday, I think division is absolutely out of the question, especially with how Chargers are starting to look solid. Chiefs are playing pretty well, and they're actually getting a little healthier, I think, coming up here. And the Raiders winning that gutsy game against the Chiefs with Derek Carr being back and getting healthier. So the Broncos, this game, I mean, the AFC West is so tight, let's be real, but this game could be the difference between if the Broncos have a chance to win the division or if they are on track to finish last place in the division. It's that close and it's that serious of a game.
Oof. Well, before we get to all that, I want to remind all of our listeners that this show's focus is all things that pertain to your Denver Broncos. We'll be bringing you the game previews every single week to get you ready for the upcoming game and how to be watching the game, hopefully as a smarter fan. With Nick and myself being film junkies, we will be bringing you these previews with a scout-based perspective, breaking down the matchups from a player's skill set and X's and O's perspective. You can follow myself on Twitter at Carl Dumler MHH, as well as follow Nick at Nick Kendell MHH. Be sure to tweet us any questions or opinions you have because we live for talking Bronco football. You can also follow the podcast Twitter account at HuddleUpPod. Make sure you check out ours and our co-writers' written content at milehighhuddle.com, a part of scout.com and an affiliate of the CBS Sports Digital Network. We know you listeners are as football and Bronco crazy as we are. So please give us a click and subscribe to us on iTunes as well as Stitcher. And don't forget to share us on Facebook and Twitter. We wouldn't be here today without you listeners, so please take the time to rate and subscribe to let your voices be heard on how you enjoy the show. We also want to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by MyBookie.net. MyBookie.net is all about the excitement of making accurate sports predictions on your favorite teams without having to risk any funds. It's totally recreational, and there are all kinds of prizes. In today's climate, the fantasy industries have made watching football a lot more interesting, so go to MyBookie.net and compete for great prizes totally free. Now, when I was getting ready for this episode, I was doing we always do a lot of research, but I was very interested. I couldn't believe for some reason, I thought the Chiefs had a much bigger lead on the Broncos when it came to the head-to-head matchups, but it's actually only 59-55 in favor of the Chiefs. And that is with the Chiefs winning the last three. So at one point it was 56-55. That's crazy. But of course, the Chiefs have won the last two home games against the Broncos, and well, this one is on the road in Chiefs country in one of the loudest stadiums. I guess it is technically the loudest stadium in the NFL during that whole crazy stunt between Seattle and Kansas City to see who was the loudest stadium. But the last time the Broncos beat the Chiefs, if you can remember, Jamal Charles fumbling late in the game on that Thursday night game. I remember just that whole week leading up to it, Chiefs fans were just going crazy that this was going to be like their biggest game in I don't know how many years, that they were going to come in, whoop up on the Broncos, show that they were supposed to be the new division champs, all of that. And I even had my car painted by Chiefs fans.
Oh, no.
I live in Chiefs country.
Oh,
for those listeners that haven't caught on to that. I live in Chiefs country, had my Bronco rock stolen out of my front yard. It got returned, thankfully. I guess it was borrowed, I guess is maybe the better way to say it. But anyway, I remember that was one of my favorite games just because I was at my parents' house, and right next to their house was some of the biggest Chiefs fans that I know. They have Chiefs flags flying out front. They had a bunch of Chiefs fans over to watch the game. And when Jamal Charles fumbled, you could audibly hear across the street them yelling. I mean, it was just this gut-wrenching pain that they were feeling in that moment. And of course, I'm sure they could hear us just screaming at the top of our lungs. So one of my favorite games of the last few years, other than of course like the Super Bowl and the playoffs and everything like that. But love that game. Hopefully we can see another just great game that people don't expect the Broncos to win. Yeah,
absolutely. And Broncos open up, at least last I saw it, was a 7.5 underdogs to the Chiefs. So yeah, that's a pretty big line, especially with how much the Chiefs have been struggling on defense recently. I mean, coming off 2 losses in a row, but the Broncos have scored 36 points in the last 4 games. So I can't say that. I think the line will be facing, or at least leaning towards the Chiefs. We'll see how it plays out, how the money is going to be laid down in Vegas. But right now, I think 7.5 is probably about right.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. In their 2 losses, they've still been very close games against 2 pretty tough opponents. And one of them, of course, being on the road there in Oakland. So as bad as it is that they're coming in 2 games down, we're down 2 games. Yeah, they have to be the favorites, especially in Kansas City, and by quite a bit. And I think you and I both are kind of at this point of not really just having a lot of expectations from this Bronco offense. I don't know how anybody could. You were talking about, 34 points in the last 4 games?
36.
36. Well, it's 10 points in the last 2 games, so 5 points per game.
Yikes.
That's, yeah, that's, I keep making that noise just because it's that dire. Yeah, it's that bad. I can't remember even the Tim Tebow days, our offense was doing a little bit more than what we're doing right now. So it's tough to see. And we're coming to our first section here, key matchups that we do every single week. And I kind of wanted to, I guess I'd say, get away from some of them that we usually do of our offensive line or our offensive tackles versus their pass rushers, just because every week that's going to be a key matchup. We know that. Justin Houston and Dee Ford. I don't think what's his name is healthy quite yet.
Tamba Hali.
Yeah, Tamba Hali. I don't know why I couldn't figure it. I respect the heck out of that guy. He's been one of my favorite non-Bronco players. Hate that he plays for the Chiefs. But those two, they're great coming off the edge. You have your boy, Chris Jones.
Yeah, my boy.
And I did see a stat, though, the other day that in the game against the Chiefs, or against the Raiders, those were the only 3 to get pressure on Derek Carr. Not a single pressure came from any other player on the team.
I believe it. I mean, like Chris Jones is one of the few. And
yeah,
Raiders do have a good offensive line.
Yeah, they do. They do. That's true. Better than ours. Yeah. But like I said, I kind of wanted to get away from the offensive line talk just a little bit because we know that's always going to be a key matchup, especially in pass protection, and talk about some of the other ones that I think could really be huge for this game. And I think first and foremost, if this Bronco defense is going to shut down this Chief offense, It starts with shutting down Kelsey and Hunt. And that means that our linebackers and our safeties are going to have their best game of the year for the Broncos to stand a chance. Do you agree?
I absolutely agree. And I know that Todd Davis has been somewhat a disappointment in covering tight ends and running backs in the receiving game. But with that ankle sprain, it sounds like he's going to be out. And we lost Corey Nelson. So that leaves us with Brandon Marshall and Zaire Anderson, who have had snaps for the Denver Broncos. They did call up Gerald Garcia-Williams, who is a rookie from Hawaii, was on their practice squad and played decently in preseason. So he's going to be offering depth there. But Broncos have some serious issues. If they didn't have issues before at inside linebacker in this 3-4 scheme, they have issues now. Brandon Marshall's not been the best in pass coverage. One of the Phillip Rivers passing touchdowns this week was mostly Brandon Marshall's fault. Could not get out to that running back. And so this is probably as tough of a task as it gets for covering tight end and running back as receivers. Kareem Hunt, if anybody's listened to us during the preseason, during the draft episodes, we were huge Kareem Hunt fans. I don't want to say that, we told you so, because a lot of people were big Kareem Hunt fans. A lot of the draft community was, but definitely was some guy that I was really hoping the Broncos would look at in the third round if they wanted a running back. And he's proven to be even better than people could have expected. I mean, he's on pace for the most rushing yards or most total yards ever from a rookie running back. I think that's true. So great running back for them. And then they also have Travis Kelce, who, I mean, as much of a jerk and a kind of a showboat as he comes off as, he's probably the best tight end in football right now in terms of like straight line speed and big play ability. I mean, Travis Kelce is about as good as it gets in the NFL right now, the tight end position. So this is an incredibly tough test for the Broncos safeties and inside linebackers who have been struggling in this matchup. Every week it seems like this is where they're struggling.
Definitely. And that's, Kareem Hunt, man, you and I are both so high on him. And I'm happy because I have him in my fantasy leagues in almost all of them but one. One of them I couldn't quite get him because I took him higher than most people because I just believed in his ability that much, that he would become the starter and do well. And he's proven me right, and he's done well for me in fantasy football, but that also means then the Chiefs are doing well. Yeah. And he's one of those guys. He's a 3-down player. You talked about it where he's getting ready to possibly set the all-time record for rookie all-time or all-purpose yards. And he's already got 717 yards rushing halfway through the year. So, I mean, he's on pace for around 1,600 yards by the time he probably gets done with things. And then he's got 25 of 27 targets. That's a pretty good number there for 285 yards as a receiver. And he's a guy that just doesn't go down. He has such amazing balance. You and I both talked about that during the draft episodes. That we loved about this guy is he has vision and balance. And when you have those two things, you don't need to be an elite athlete. You don't have to be a Adrian Peterson or a Leonard Fournette because your athleticism will get you plays that maybe other players just can't make. And like I said, he's just proven us right with that. And for me, he was my one player that I've ever thought about trying to compare to like Terrell Davis because his running style just reminded me so much of Terrell Davis, of not being the speedster, not being the power guy, just being good at everything, but especially vision. And man, he's just been so good. But yeah, then Travis Kelce, he is a matchup nightmare, but he is one of my favorite tight ends to watch because he is such an amazing route runner. There's not another tight end in the NFL right now. Evan Ingram, I think, will get there because he's just that athletic and he's more of that hybrid wide receiver tight end kind of type. But Travis Kelce, he just finds different ways to get open more than just being a big body on the field. And he has sneaky speed, I would say. Kind of like Robert Gronkowski, he's a lot faster than you would think he would be. And Kelce last year, he had 652 yards after the catch last year. And he's had at least 10 broken tackles in every single year that he's been in the NFL. And his stats just keep going up every single season. So he's becoming more and more of just that weapon that you wish you had on your team because it is such a matchup nightmare. There are just so few teams that have players that can defend these type of players. And I was really hoping Justin Simmons would become that kind of guy for us. That tall guy that has the speed, that has good tackling ability, that has good leaping ability to really challenge these guys for those throw up balls. And he has moments that he is that player. He just doesn't do it consistently. And this is the week he's got to get himself right because one blown coverage and it's a big touchdown for the Chiefs.
Yeah. Kelsey, I think I would vote him as the best tight end right now in football just because he hasn't had the injuries Gronk has. They're a little bit different. Gronk is more of they're both obviously great athletes with good size. Gronk is more of a incredible like 50-50 ball go-getter type where he comes down with footballs that it's like, Jesus, how do you stop that 6'7", 260-pound dude? Like, you just can't. He's so big and he just comes down with everything. Whereas Kelsey is more of a straight line speed guy. He can get open because he, like you mentioned, he is an incredible route runner. And then once he gets to the ball, he can be gone. I think in the horrible Christmas Day night game where we played at Kansas City last year, first quarter, he had what was like a 70-yard touchdown, like the second touchdown of the game. Broncos were down 14-0 like after 2 possessions. That was probably one of the worst games overall that we've seen, at least from the defense, in a long time. But yeah, it's going to be very tough. And I'm hoping to see more Will Parks this week, honestly, and Jamal Carter. The Broncos have struggled to cover tight ends. Last week, Hunter Henry was probably the only guy really doing anything for the Chargers, at least like it seemed in the past game. And then Evan Ingram the week before. So I think it was Chris Harris. He touched on it. He's saying that they have plans to cover the tight ends. They're just not executing it properly or not running through with it fully. So I'm expecting, even if it means giving up a little bit more on the ground, you got to stop those chunk plays with the tight end. So hopefully you see some more 3 safety looks and get Jamal Carter and Will Parks some chances to get a little bit more physical and up in the face of Travis Kelce. You know, those are young guys looking to make a name, looking to get more playing time, and I'd love to see one of them, you know, not take Kelce out, so to speak, but put him in his place, because Kelsey's a guy who can get a little bit too amped up emotionally and make mental mistakes, and that's something that the Broncos are going to need to do. They're going to need to get in the head of a guy like that, because otherwise he can take over a game, and you don't want to see that.
Definitely, yeah. You got to get that early pop on him to remind him that going over the middle is not going to be easy that day. And the Broncos have some hard-hitting safeties. Darian Stewart, Will Parks, and Jamal Carter there. Man, one of those guys got to get a big hit early in the game. If they do that, I'm going to feel a lot better about our odds of stopping, especially Travis Kelce. And I think they can be aggressive in the run game too. That's one thing that's been great about this defense is they are a great tackling defense. And Kareem Hunt, that's what you got to do. You got to get him the first time, because he's not going to stop fighting for those extra yards. And so if we can get those safeties in there to make that early tackle, get him down, get him in some long distance plays. Although the Chiefs, what has happened? We went from captain check down to guy that's picking up 3rd and 15 plays. I don't know what's going on with Alex Smith this year, but I guess that little extra pressure behind him.
Yeah, and I think that's finally just Andy Reid showing off some of his weapons that they've accumulated.
Definitely.
Alex Smith has always been an underrated quarterback, in my opinion. I mean, he's not a top 10 guy ever, but he's always in that 17 to 12 range. And if you have a good team around him, he's going to take care of the football. He's athletic enough to move the sticks, and he's smart enough to find the right matchup. I mean, whether it be Tyreek Hill, running back, or using his legs, Alex Smith can run an offense. So I don't want to say I'm jealous of the Chiefs having Alex Smith, but that's competent QB play. And when you have an overall offensive scheme rolling the way that the Chiefs do with Andy Reid's scheme right now, it works. So I'm definitely worried about Kelce this week. We'll probably talk about him later when we're talking about our X factors a little bit, but it's got to slow those 2 guys down. Otherwise the Chiefs offense can put up enough points that it's going to be hard for the Broncos to win with the way their offense is playing right now. The Broncos offense, that is.
Definitely. Well, moving on to another matchup that I think Broncos just have to get better at. And that's the whole theme of this entire week. Got to be better. Every area, defense, offense, special teams. Defense, not as much as the other 2 areas, but I don't want to ignore especially the special teams, because Broncos gave up that punt return to Travis Benjamin this last week. And there's been some issues. It wasn't just that one play. They've had, obviously, McManus. I don't know what the heck's going on with that guy. Maybe a week off where he didn't even get a try a field goal. Maybe that'll help him get his head on right. But yeah, just this entire unit. I was a big Olivo fan when we brought him in, but he's got to get these guys fired up. They were overrunning punt coverages. I don't know how many times I saw 3 guys just like coming down on Benjamin, and then they just like run right by him. There was no breaking down. Hey, let's make sure we keep him in front of us and let other guys come up and help us make the play. No, it was just, we're going to run at top speed and just hope and happen to run into him. It was terrible. Now, some of that might have been injuries. They had 7, 8 guys that were out for the game. that
Yeah,
were
we're missing some depth. We're missing some depth in special teams, that's for sure.
Yeah. And so other guys had to step into some other roles. But this is my key matchup number 2 is our kick and punt coverage units versus Tyreek Hill, Akeem Hunt, and Thomas for the kickoff unit. This, honestly, in my opinion, is the most dangerous return unit in the NFL. They have speed galore with these 3 guys. And Tyreek Hill, he's already taken 1 for a touchdown, an 82-yard touchdown. He's only returned 13 punts this year. Teams are have learned their lesson from last year, kind of trying to keep it away from him as much as possible or kick it a little bit shorter to make sure your coverage unit can get down there. But he is still 7th in the NFL with 11.7 yards per return. And on the opposite side of that, Riley Dixon right now is 28th in the NFL of net punting average, and the Broncos are last in average yards per punt return at 15.2. Hopefully all that came across clear. Broncos have been worst at trying to cover punts. Tyreek Hill has been top 10. That's usually not a good combination for trying to stop this guy. And then on the other side of that, Akeem Hunt, some of you might have drafted him instead of Kareem Hunt on accident. I did not make that mistake, thankfully, but he is there. He was a great pickup late. He was on their practice squad there for a little bit, and he has come in and he is – I'm trying to remember what the stat is. He averages 27 yards per return, which ranks 4th in the NFL of all qualified returners. So my question to you, Nick, is then what should the Broncos do to stop these guys?
Not have to punt. Just score every time I get the ball, and then onside kick it. Yeah, that's the dream. But, I mean, you just have to kick it away from him. You just can't let Tyreek Hill beat you. And that's so hard to do because now he's phasing to become even more and more of an offensive weapon, and they're using him with that option, and he's becoming a better and better wide receiver. So it's hard to do. I mean, there's nobody in the NFL that has his speed. Some will argue John Ross, but I disagree. I think play speed, nobody's as fast as Tyreek Hill. Although I guess Leonard Fournette has the fastest speed so far this season, which is absolutely insane to me. The top 2. Buoy to all those people who didn't think he was going to be good. I'm still a little bit worried about that ankle, but man, Leonard Fournette is absolutely fun to watch. And Cam Robinson's hurt. Man, I'm sad. Anyway, enough about the Jags. We hopefully maybe get to break them down a little bit if we meet them in the playoffs or something. But that's a little bit looking ahead there. But anyway, back to the punt units. It's so tough because the Broncos have had some serious injuries for some of those key special teams players. Cody Latimer is one of the best special teams players in the NFL. I mean, if there's always that stupid guy for the Patriots who makes the Pro Bowl as the specialist, which is his name, Slater.
Yep.
Slater. People just vote him in because they know him. But honest to God, Cody Latimer is one of the best special teams players in the NFL. And yes, it's not as important as defense or offense. It'd be better if he contributed as a wide receiver. But still, we miss him. We really do miss him in special teams. We miss Kayvon Webster in special teams. He was a great player for us for years on those special teams units. And we miss Corey Nelson. So it's rough when you're bringing in those new bodies that don't have that chemistry, and they're just not as good at covering kicks and punts. I mean, it just looks like that. I do appreciate Olivo's passion. He's a fun interview, that's for sure. But so was the special teams coordinator last year. I mean, he's not even with the team anymore. He got that chance to be the head coach in that game at San Diego, and then hardly was ever heard from again. So he's got to pull something out here because right now special teams has been dreadful. Luckily for him, the offense has been even worse. So we're not really talking about that. But I guess we're talking about it, but it's not the main focus of the fans' rage right now compared to the offense. But it's got to be better. And if they give up a touchdown to Tyreek Hill this week, or even Akeem Hunt or DeAnthony Thomas, it's going to make it super hard for the Broncos to win and play the kind of football that they have to play to win. They're a team, just like in the Super Bowl, they had that early turnover that was a touchdown to give them that lead, the field goal and the touchdown to give them that decent lead. And then they can just play with the lead. Defense can control the flow of the game once you have the lead. But when you're playing from behind like the Broncos have the last couple weeks, it gets ugly for the offense fast. And that's just the way it is for this offense going forward, at least in the foreseeable future with the mediocre offensive line, the injuries in the receiving core, and the subpar play at quarterback.
I don't really have anything else to add to what you said because that's all exactly right. The defense already has a tough enough job with how bad the offense is doing. And then you add special teams struggling on top of that. It's an impossible mountain for the Broncos to overcome when that begins to happen. Think about it from the defensive perspective, where you have to play perfect, absolutely perfect, for the team to stand a chance to win the game. That's just a lot of stress, a lot of pressure, and it's going to cause a lot of tension. Like, why do we have to again and again have to keep going out there and prove ourselves? We are a championship caliber defense, and our special teams and offense just keep throwing everything away. We're making these games easy to win. You only have to do so much to win it, and you can't do that. It's not even that you have to be great on offense or special teams. It's just that you got to be average, and it's not happening. So I'm sure it's frustrating for the defense. I know it is. But yeah, Oliva, McCoy, you guys got to figure out something. I know you don't have all the playmakers that sometimes we've had in the past, but it's just what it is. You got to do it with what you got.
Yeah, and a PSA to Brandon Langley. I'm really excited about your future with the Broncos, but for the love of Christ, please, if it's decently in the end zone, take a knee. We don't need to be starting the ball inside our own 10 because this offense needs all the help they can get. So does the defense. I mean, how much bad field position can the defense start with? So just be happy with the 25. I understand the mentality probably is, hey, our offense really stinks. Maybe we can break one. Maybe that's the only way we can get something going. But I feel like you're just playing right into the other team's hands. Maybe I'm showing my John Fox there being a little bit conservative, but drives within the 10, within the 15, horrible. You can't do that to start a game, especially with the way the offense is playing right now for the Broncos.
No, I agree. And I think it's a little bit of also just that rookie mentality of I got to make a name for myself. I got to do something to make the coaches take notice and give me a little bit more time. Look at McKenzie. How many muff punts does he have already because he's trying to do too much?
Yeah.
He's going to learn. I know he will. He's going to be a great punt returner as his career goes on. But he's got to learn there's just times you just don't take the chances. The whole going over and like pretty much taking the ball out of a defender's hand on a punt, that was crazy. He got lucky that he caught it, that it ended up well, but there's just, sometimes those rookies, man, they can irritate you to no end. And Langley, I think he's just trying to do a little too much. He's just got to remember, like you said, sometimes you just got to play that position battle and be happy with the 25-yard line. At least you can punt it 40 yards and you're going to at least pin them back where our defense will make them go the entire field.
Yeah, absolutely. So Broncos, I mean, they're not winning the offensive phase right now, but if you're losing the offensive phase and the special teams phase, game's over, period. You can't do that. I mean, it sucks to be losing one phase pretty consistently, but if the special teams is also hurting the defense and the offense, you're going to lose at Arrowhead. There's no doubt about it. So be better returning the football. Don't let Hill beat you with a punt or a kick return. And hopefully let's have less punts. That doesn't mean more interceptions. Talking to you, offense, or turnovers, gosh darn it. But let's get in the end zone. It's time. I know we had that garbage time touchdown to Hireman against the Giants, but when was the last time we had a honest to God, good feeling touchdown? Was it that one to AJ Derby that was amazing catch? And that honestly might have been the last legitimate touchdown. I know the Hireman touchdown still counts for fantasy, but that game was over.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. That was the last one I can remember that really mattered for the actual impact of the game.
Yeah. Gosh, Peyton Manning had 55 touchdowns in 2015. Was it 2013? 55. Gosh, what is this?
We got spoiled. Yeah, it's 2017. It's amazing how things can change so quickly in the NFL. I just think of Peyton Manning going from MVP to huge liability on the field within a matter of, it was like a switch from 1 week to the next. It was like that. I think it was the Rams game where he took a bunch of hits and he just never was the same after that game.
I was at that game, and yes, it was that game. Gosh darn it. I'm bad luck, I swear. I go to Denver this week, and Broncos are shut out. Now, we still have a lot to get to, but first we want to once again say thank you to our sponsor, MyBookie.net. MyBookie is all about the fun and excitement of making accurate predictions on your favorite teams without risking any of your cash. Site members can make picks against real spreads, lines, and totals for major sports leagues and associations, as well as college sports, and compete for great prizes courtesy of MyBookie. MyBookie.net is the greatest, most professional, and totally free 100% recreational sports prediction service you can find on the internet. Instead of the typical head-to-head challenges and handicapping contests, MyBookie.net goes beyond the basics and offers members a true betting platform that will make users feel like they were in a real betting site. Unlike most betting services, MyBookie.net is a completely free site that allows you to make daily predictions and bets and win real prizes at no cost. MyBookie is not a gambling or play-for-money site. It's a free sports wagering website built for millions of sports fans to provide them with a platform to participate in picking games, predicting scores, and compete for free prizes without risking any money. Just like the Office Pick'em contest in fantasy football, MyBookie brings a deeper enjoyment and excitement to watching our favorite teams play by increasing the stakes. It is fun, and for no cost to you, you get to make predictions and qualify for prizes. Again, the service is absolutely free for all users. So what are you waiting for? And we want to say thank you to MyBookie for sponsoring the Huddle Up podcast. All right, Carl, well, now we got to talk about a unit that many have been saying the Broncos need to use more of if they want to get back on track on the offense, and that is the Broncos rushing attack. The last couple weeks, the Broncos have failed to run the football enough, and many of the talking heads, not specifically us, but many of the talking heads and fans alike are saying that Broncos aren't built to throw the football 35, 40 times a game, and that even if the run game is not really working and the other teams are stacking the box, Broncos need to keep pounding the rock and wear down defenses. The Broncos started off great to begin the year. I believe after the third week of the season, they were the number 3 rushing offense in football. Small sample size, very true, but they were running the ball very effectively to start the year when the team was looking good. But recently, not so good, and a lot of that has to do with the flow of the game. Once the Broncos get behind and teams are pretty much taking away the run, playing for Simeon to try to beat them outside, it's been tough sledding for the rushing offense since that, and hopefully this is a week where they start to get on track, because I don't see the passing offense playing the best, and the Chiefs, although kind of like the Chargers and the Giants, the Chiefs haven't been great against the run so far this year. Here's to the Broncos rushing offense. I mean, they got to play better this week. What do you think, Carl?
Essentially, this is my thought, is the rest of the team is going to have to pick up the slack that's lacking at the quarterback position right now. And I know that's tough. There's things that I know that Simeon is doing that is making it even harder to run, even beyond the fact that he's struggling to pass. Kind of some things that he's doing just with his setup pre-snap that are letting some teams know some things. But they're still going to have to go out there and just win their one-on-one battles. And I kind of liked a little bit of what Vance Joseph had to say this week, that they're going to maybe try to, this isn't a quote, but pretty much dumb down some things. He thinks that they've maybe made things a little bit too complicated. They're having way too many meetings, and it's causing some miscommunications. It's causing them to just not be going as fast as they could be. And so maybe by simplifying a little bit this week of, hey, hat on hat, you got the guy right in front of you. And I know in the NFL, like, it's got to be more complicated than that to actually make it work, because teams are rotating all the time. They're moving guys before the snap of the ball. So it's kind of hard to know exactly who's going to be right in front of you anyway. But I don't know. It is. There's so many things going wrong with this offensive unit. It isn't just Simeon. I want to get that across. I know that, especially us at Mile High Huddle, we have been probably some of the strongest people against Simeon, even before the season started. Kind of, hey, this guy, he's only going to take us so far. And my wife, when the Broncos were losing so bad this last week, she goes, well, at least you can take solace in the fact that you can say, I told you so. And I'm going, that doesn't make me feel better. I was hoping this guy would be more. But it also is where guys are losing their one-on-one battles. I've seen offensive linemen just have guys run right by them, and all of a sudden a hole closes down. I remember there was a play, I think it was against the Giants, where Benny Fowler, oh my goodness, there was such a huge run lane for Jamal Charles. All Benny Fowler had to do was crack down on a cornerback, and Jamal Charles had the whole right side of the field just to go and make a play. He had like maybe one more guy to beat, a deep safety. And I kind of believe Jamal Charles one-on-one with the deep safety, he's going to win that battle. But he didn't see that Benny Fowler missed his guy. And that guy comes up and tackles him for a 3-yard play. So what could have been this 30, 40-yard run is stopped because a guy missed his assignment. So again, it's not just Simeon. This is offensive line not always doing their job. This is wide receivers not always doing their job. This is tight ends running wrong routes or dropping passes. This last week I saw C.J. Anderson drop a pass that I was kind of going, man, I don't usually see him drop a pass. He was just I think he's just trying to do too much. And these guys just are not playing just instinctual football. They're thinking way too much. So I'm hoping maybe kind of dumbing some things down and just saying, hey, go out there and play football, and let's go see what we can do. because, this Chiefs front seven, they are not great against the run. This has been their Achilles this year. They haven't been great in pass coverage either, but especially against the run, they're 30th in the league right now in yards given up and 19th, or 30th in yards given up total and 19th in points allowed. They're 25th in the league in rushing yards allowed and 28th in yards per carry. So this is a week that maybe even when teams try to load up the box, when the Chiefs try to load up the box, that the Broncos can still go have some success. Jamal Charles, with his speed, I hope he gets a lot more carries. I'm hoping that he has that desire just to go and show his team that they were idiots for letting him go. I hope he has that fire in him, and I hope the Broncos give him that chance to go do that, because his speed can help break through an 8-man box, because guys just won't expect him to be going quite that fast. But I don't know. Like I said, this is just a week where everybody has to step up and show that this season is not lost, because I really do feel like with the loss this week, season's over. I think you're going to lose the locker room. I think you're going to lose the defensive players. It's going to be hard to get them excited to go out there and continue to put full effort. And I'm not saying that they're going to completely give up, because, I mean, they're professionals. But I just think you're going to see this divide that just really destroys the team.
Yeah, if the Broncos get whooped on this week, and if it's because of the offense not playing well, I think you got a real strong chance that you could lose the locker room this year. I mean, there's already tensions boiling up, it sounds like. And, I mean, with the defense playing this well, no shit they're going to be irritated. I mean, this is a competitive group. This is the defense that's championship caliber. I mean, they're wasting Von Miller's prime years with this pathetic offense. I mean, there's no other way to put it, unfortunately. And it's incredibly disheartening and frustrating. So I don't think there's really an easy fix for the offense. I think it's personnel issues, but I do hope that the run game can step it back up and help Simeon. And just, there's no better compliment to a young quarterback and a good defense than a solid run game. So hopefully the Broncos can get an early lead, and the rushing game will be a little more stout just because of the flow of the game dictates that. One thing I do want to point out, though, is that the Broncos are missing Menelik Watson in the run game. I know the right tackle has been everyone's favorite beating dog, or whatever you want to call it, for the last few years, because let's be honest, the right tackle position has been horrible since probably Orlando Franklin's second year. I mean, I know he was terrible in the Super Bowl, but he's still the best right tackle we've had in a while. But the Broncos miss Menelik Watson, especially on the ground. He's not a great pass blocker, but he is a good run blocker. And a lot of those big runs came to the right side this year, especially those ones by C.J. Anderson where he just squirts through and all of a sudden he's in the open field. That's Leary and Menelik Watson, and maybe a pull block by Barber or lead block by Jano, or maybe even a pull by Green. But a lot of that's coming from that right side, and that's because Menelik Watson is a dog on the ground game. He can really body somebody, and I don't think he's going to play this week as well. So anybody who thought Barber was a better option at right tackle, come on. I understand Watson was playing bad, but Barber is not a tackle. He does not have the length or the speed or the power that you can play at the right tackle. And they showed that last week. Let's be completely honest. Barber was a train wreck. As much as I've been harping that the Broncos offensive line has been league average this season, league average. By that I don't mean they're good, but that's just kind of the state of offensive line across the NFL right now. But they were freaking bad last week. There's no other way to put it. They were bad. Bowles probably had his worst game of his career. Leary played pretty solid, I thought, especially in pass protection. He's been one of the best pass blockers all season. But Barber and Garcia. But Barber, man, he stunk up the joint at right tackle. And if he's going again there next week, he's got Justin Houston. So I don't know. I guess it's rough. It's going to be rough, but the Broncos have to be able to run the football. And I feel like that's, besides the quarterback playing better and taking advantage of one-on-one opportunities outside with a stacked box, it has a lot to do with the flow of the game. So Broncos need to get an early lead and have that Broncos rushing attack work better. Derek Johnson's still a good player for them. Older, a little slower, but still, I mean, one of the better, headier off-ball linebackers in the NFL. I mean, he's been there. He was in the same draft as DJ Williams. How long ago does that feel when the Broncos had DJ Williams drafted? That's how long Derek Johnson's been with the Chiefs. That's incredible. That's like 2007 or something. 2006?
I think 2006.
That's incredible. That dude is old, but he's still getting it done. And, I mean, I would be remiss if I didn't talk about my boy Chris Jones. Outside of Carson Wentz, I wanted the Broncos to get Chris Jones in the first round in that draft. I was not a big Paxton Lynch guy, I'll be completely honest. I thought he was too raw, didn't think that he saw the field well enough, and I didn't see him translating to a pro scheme very well. I'm not going to claim victory on that take yet, But right now it's heading that way. We'll see. We'll see what happens. He's still got time. I'm not giving up on him. But Chris Jones, man, he early second round pick in the 2016 draft, and he has been just a menace for the Chiefs. One of the better interior pass rushers in the NFL. Sometimes he can play a little bit out of control, not finish the play, and he can play with lack of leverage. These guys can get under him and drive him. But that size, I think he's like 6'5", 310 pounds, to be able to rush the passer at that size, I mean, he's got balance and ankle flexion. That's a very special player, and he's somebody that the Broncos are going to have to look out for. Simeon's struggling climbing the pocket, so maybe I'm not as worried about him, because he's a guy that if you have a quarterback that's climbing the pocket, Chris Jones is going to eat you up. But definitely want to watch out for him. Leary and Paradis and Garcia are going to have their hands full with him on the inside.
Yeah, I was a big Paxton Lynch fan, so I wanted him over Chris Jones, but I did like Chris Jones. You got me believing on him, and now you got me believing on your new boy.
We'll save that for later.
Yeah, we'll save that for later. Yeah, I had to stop Nick from turning this into a draft heavy podcast already. He asked me earlier today when we could start talking about the draft on a more regular basis, and I told him let's wait a few more weeks, see where the team's at before we get too crazy. But yes, Chris Jones, handful for sure. I'm sure that they'll be trying to get him, especially matched up against Garcia, just because they know that they can win that battle. And I'm really hoping that the Broncos will shade Paradis to that side to help out, because otherwise that who was it that hit, was it Ingram that hit Simeon this last week and possibly broke his nose?
Yes.
Yeah, that's right. And I could see Chris Jones having one of those kind of hits if Garcia gets up against him one-on-one. So it could get very interesting there. But like I said, Broncos have to win with this run game. They might have to force feed it a little bit more this week and just say, hey, we got 8 in the box. I know we do, but let's just run it anyway. And I know the team has been a little frustrated because Simeon has checked out of those plays sometimes. They've kind of told him a few times already, hey, I know it looks good for the pass, but we're calling a run play for a reason. We're trying to set other things up later on. So again, that might just have to be the case where you don't have the numbers, but you still run it anyway. And it's not so much that you win that battle right then and there, but you're trying to set up something with maybe play action later on in the game, giving them the same look, and then they think, oh, here comes run again, and boom, you hit him over the top with DT going up against Mitchell. That's a key matchup, I think, that we're not going to talk about today, but I could see one of those kind of plays, just trying to get something big to get this defense to back off of them a little bit. And that might be set up by getting some of those 1 to 2 yard carries that just don't seem like they matter that much, but later on in the game, maybe they do. And speaking of playing the chess match that is the NFL, I kind of put in a new one this week for key matchups, and I went 2 coaches, and that's Andy Reid versus Joe Woods. And I say this one just because Joe Woods, he's done really well this year. He's had a few times where it's mostly been more miscommunication issues than it has been game plan issues, I would say. Maybe the Giants game, that was maybe the one game where I'd say, man, that was not the greatest game plan. And I think some of it was they just didn't exactly know what to expect with so many new players coming in for the Giants. Beyond that one, Joe Woods has done really well, but this will be one of his toughest matchups of the year. Andy Reid, I believe, is one of the most creative coaches in the entire NFL. Right now, Kansas City has the number 2 scoring offense at 29.6 points, only behind the Rams. How weird is that? The Rams, who were one of the worst offenses in the NFL last year. And this should give Bronco fans hope. You can change the offense in 1 year. You can go from one of the worst to one of the best with just some changes, mostly by getting a quarterback that knows what they're doing and a coach that knows what they're doing. Those kind of help out a little bit. But Kansas City, Andy Reid, very creative. This year, I've seen plays that I'm just going, man, I don't even know how you try to begin to defend some of that. Where they have Travis Kelce going over the middle on a seam route. You have Kareem Hunt coming up the middle on an option play. And then you have Tyreek Hill doing an end around. I mean, there's just so many unique weapons that Andy Reid is finding ways to really take advantage of their skill sets So that's what I love when I see that out of coaching. One of my biggest pet peeves is when I see a coach that continues to kind of that square peg, round hole. You do it my way. You run my system. I don't care what your skill set is. You're going to do it my way. You're going to have to win my way. I was kind of thinking about the Rams there with, what's his name, their old coach?
Jeff Fisher, one of the worst coaches that somehow continued to get a job in the NFL. It's amazing. But he was one of those guys, square peg, round hole. We're going to do it my way. And Andy Reid, he looks at the players that he has and he says, this is what we can do and this is what we can do well. And I know a lot of people have said, well, this is a gimmicky offense. In some ways, yes, it is. But they have such unique weapons that it doesn't matter how gimmicky it is, it's still hard to defend because you just can't teach that kind of speed that Tyreek Hill has. You can't just stop that seam route by Travis Kelce because he's faster than any of your linebackers. There's only maybe a couple linebackers in the NFL that can keep up with him. And safety-wise, he's bigger than your safeties. So he's just such a unique player. And Kareem Hunt, he's just such a great runner. You give him a little seam, just a little spot, and he could take it for a huge gain. And then above all else, you have Alex Smith, one of the most underrated running quarterbacks in the NFL right now. His ability to go make a play with his legs is it's irritating because you can sit there and have like a 3rd and 12 play, and all of a sudden he takes off running. You're like, oh, he's a running quarterback. No big deal. They'll catch up. Nope. He has the speed to go make a play. And so Joe Woods, I just want to see how he game plans to try to stop all these different weapons that the Chiefs are going to be throwing at him. Yeah, it's really just it's a different style offense than anyone else is running right now in the NFL, and I love it. I love that they're using more college type of systems because that's the type of talent that's coming in the NFL right now. You got to be putting your players in the best situation to succeed. And what do the Chiefs have? They have a quarterback who's pretty athletic, smart with the football, can move around and be accurate underneath. They have Tyreek Hill, who is an absolute chess piece. A offensive line that's not that good. I would say that the individual players for the Broncos offensive line, I would take the individual players for the Broncos offensive line over the Chiefs right now. That said, the Chiefs have a good system, and Alex Smith is very good at protecting the offensive line, moving in ways that makes the offensive line look good. And then you got Travis Kelce and Kareem Hunt, who we've already touched on as well. So it's a unique offense. I mean, if you recall to that week 1 game where they had several shovel passes to Travis Kelce, I mean, they had direct snaps to Travis Kelce, for Christ's sake. I mean, this is a very fun, unique offense that's I wish more teams in the NFL would use. I still do appreciate the old-fashioned, pocket quarterback, playing 12 and 21 personnel, but I don't think that's the direction the NFL is heading. I think you got to bring in these weapons, especially with the type of quarterbacks that are coming in. You think Baker Mayfield can play in a standard Peyton Manning style offense or even Lamar Jackson? No, but put him in a unique style offense that uses a little bit more college schemes, some options. Let them be athletes with the pockets moving, and you can really create some opportunities. I mean, how many teams were shut out this weekend in the NFL? Was it 3? I think there were a lot of shutouts, or 3 teams didn't reach the end zone. So I want to see more teams start to do what the Chiefs are doing with offense and just get a little bit more creative and put quarterbacks in situations where they can succeed. There's more than one way to score a touchdown. So that's I guess my little rant on the state of offensive play in the NFL. Maybe I'm just frustrated with the Broncos, but I think that this is getting back to Joe Woods versus drawing a blank here.
Andy Reid.
See, this is normally you who draws a blank on the names. What's going on here? Getting back to Joe Woods versus Andy Reid. Yeah, this is a big game, and there's some frustration from some of the offensive player or from some of the defensive players, at least from what I've heard, on some of the play calls. I mean, they said they had a plan for Evan Ingram that they just didn't use. They said that they had a plan to stop Hunter Henry, and they just aren't doing it. I mean, you have Chris Harris coming out saying we got to hold them to 0 points. So there's a lot of pressure on the defense, and this is probably the second best offense we will play all year behind the New England Patriots, just because Tom Brady's incredible and I hate him. Just need to throw that out there. One thing to mention about the Chiefs offense as a whole, they do have some injuries across the offensive line. Last week, starting guard Duvernay Tardif. Sound familiar? Mm-hmm. I've seen him play. I just can't pronounce his gosh darn name. Laurent Duvernay Tardif. I believe I pronounced that correctly. He's out. He has a knee injury. And then they also have Mitch Morse, who was a high-round draft pick by them from Missouri. Broncos liked him as well. They were kind of disappointed that the Chiefs took Mitch Morse, but he's been out for most of the year at center. So they do have some injuries. And they also lost Conley, on the outside. He was not really utilized in the Chiefs' offense, but with his size, speed, and ability to just be a threat down the field on every play vertically, he really does help open up the underneath plays for the Hunts, for the Hills, for the Kelseys, and for Alex Smith. So that's something as well that the Chiefs, they do have some injuries. Albert Wilson did play last week. He had that fluky touchdown where the Raider guy should have picked it off, and instead it was a touchdown. Luckily, the universe corrected that, and the Raiders still won that game despite that play. But they have some injuries on offense. So the Broncos defense, I think, will match up decently well. It's a Broncos defense versus the Chiefs offense. It is an unstoppable force versus an immovable object. But for the Broncos offense, for the Chiefs defense, it's a stoppable force versus a movable object. It's incredible how the different dynamics of the teams right now. So I'm interested to see what Joe Woods does. He's going to have to do a better job game planning against the tight ends and the wide receivers, or the running backs as receivers, because that's how the Broncos, I mean, we've done it every week. Game plan every week. I play the Broncos for defense, or when I'm the opposing team's offense. Get the running backs in space. Get the ball to the tight end. Get the ball to the quarterback's hand quickly, pick on those linebackers, and double and triple team Von Miller. That's what teams are doing, and they're getting themselves enough points that the Broncos offense can't keep up. Defense is playing great. No complaints about the defense other than the lack of turnovers, but I mean, that's just kind of fluky. I don't know what else to say about it. I guess we could be getting more pass rush pressure, but I also feel like because the Broncos offense is so inept, teams aren't taking as many chances, so that's limiting the turnovers as well. It's all sick. It's all what's the word I'm looking for? Yeah, it's synergetic. Everything is connected. If one unit is not creating pressure, then the other unit's going to play differently. Broncos offense is not a threat right now. So what does that mean? Other teams are going to play conservatively, play field position, not let the Broncos defense win. It's almost like, you ever see the movie Waterboy?
Mm-hmm.
Where in the Bourbon Bowl, where they're playing, it's the Mud Dogs versus whatever school he was fired from as the Waterboy. Once Adam Sandler gets in there, they're like, you know what? We're just going to take a goddamn knee every time, because we're not going to let Adam Sandler and the Mud Dogs defense score points. And that's essentially what other teams are doing to the Broncos right now. They're not afraid of the offense.
Chris Harris talked exactly about this. He said that they are just running such quick passes, these little 2-yard routes, that it doesn't give them the chance to really force a turnover unless they try to jump a route or something like that. But he said they're just trying to get the ball out so quickly because of Von Miller and the pass rush. And like you said, if they don't have to have a big play to win the game, if they don't have to go out there and score points to really do much, why force it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Why play right into what the Broncos need to have happen? They need the defense to score a touchdown. They need the defense to force a turnover. So why do it? And the Chiefs, they have been, I think, the best turnover team. Well, I think they have the fewest turnovers of any team in the NFL this year. Or
they did it on the
giveaways.
First snap of the season. I don't know if they did one last week. First snap of the season. And after that, I don't think they've had a single turnover since then on the offense.
They have not. They have just that one fumble.
That's incredible. Kareem Hunt's first carry, and then he goes off for like 200 yards.
But yeah, and I mean, they've had their opportunities, like you talked about, where Albert Wilson had that fluke touchdown that should have been an interception. So it's that just sometimes the ball bounces that way, bounces your favor. They still lost the game, which is crazy. But there was a couple other plays that didn't go their way in that game where they forced the turnover and a penalty negated it. That was kind of a fluky flag, I would say. But moving on here, we have our X Factor section. And I'm a little scared to do this one because it seems like every week the person I pick goes out and has a terrible game. And last week I picked Todd Davis. I'd say he maybe had his worst game of the year. And of course, then it ended in injury on a pretty sketchy play by Okung rolling up on the back of his ankle. And like I said, I think he's going to be out this week, it looks like. And I don't know what's going to happen there at that inside linebacker position. I really do think Jamal Carter is going to get a ton of snaps this week because he's that one guy that can be a little bit of that hybrid, can still help out in the run game a little bit more. Maybe it'll be Will Parks because he's pretty good in run support too. But yeah, Todd Davis, that's who I picked. And who did you have?
I had Garrett Bowles because I knew that either Stevenson or Barber would be playing right tackle and needed Garrett Bowles to play well to solidify the offensive line, help Simeon because he's seeing ghosts, obviously, and just because it's a really tough matchup. I mean, Bosa and Ingram are probably the best edge rusher duo in the NFL now that Merciless and Watt are out, along with Clowney for the Texans, and they lived up to that best edge rusher duo. They absolutely wrecked the Broncos tackles, and Bowles arguably had his worst game as a pro. He showed a lot of those issues that we talked about on this podcast. I mean, he's going to have to add strength as he goes along, because right now he's a little bit weak in the base and he can get beat on bull rushes. And there was that sack where he got walked right back into Trevor Siemian. I believe it was Ingram who got credit for it, and Siemian just imploded as soon as Bowles touched him, which, I mean, good for Trevor for going down, learn that self-sack, but my goodness, he just got pushed back. Ingram's playing as good as any defensive lineman in the NFL right now. So the Bulls do not have a good game, and hopefully he will rebound this week against D Ford. But we'll see. I don't know. We really need him to. Bowles has been a good pick. He's not playing like a top 10 offensive tackle, which, I mean, who was expecting that? He's definitely playing better than many people expected, including myself. I thought he'd be way more penalty prone this season than he's shown, which great. That's great. We really need that at the tackle position. A lot of teams need the tackle position, but Bowles didn't have the best game. This week, though, we kind of touched on a little bit. I won't go that long on it, but I went Justin Simmons. Here, he had his worst game as a pro, I would say, in that Christmas Day night game against the Chiefs, where the Chiefs just kicked us in the butt. And Simmons gave up a bunch of yards to Travis Kelce in man coverage, just looking lost, missed tackles, all that whole shindig. Just a bad game. And with all the Broncos linebackers injured, I think Justin Simmons is going to be given a lot more time closer to the line of scrimmage, playing up against Travis Kelce. And he struggled there. He looks as good he tested agility-wise at the combine. He looks a little bit stiff in man coverage, especially in those hips. He can get flipped over, and especially with a great route runner like Travis Kelce, he can get burnt. So Justin Simmons, I'm looking at you. This is going to be a big game for him, big opportunity. And if he has a good game, especially against Travis Kelce, Broncos got a chance to win this one.
Very good pick. I went with A.J. Derby. He's kind of been that receiving threat at the tight end position for the Broncos. They've mixed it up a little bit between all three of the tight ends, but A.J. Derby seems to be the main guy when they really go into obvious passing situations. And the Chiefs, ever since Eric Berry went down, tight ends have been a little bit of an issue for them. They're the one player that's really been able to they've had a lot of players give them some issues. But I just feel like A.J. Derby, this is a big week where he can go out and make some plays and just take some pressure off of the rest of the team. Just especially, I don't know if Sanders is going to play yet. We don't know. I hear he's really working hard to get back for this game. But even if he does come back, what is he going to be? Because a big part of his game is being able to cut off those ankles and leave guys in the dust. But, last week we had DT, who was just double, triple covered most of the game because there just wasn't many other options. A.J. Derby, got to go out there and have a big game. The Raiders, Jared Cook. I wasn't all that impressed with that pickup just because Jared Cook, he's more roars like a lion but plays more like a kitty. I don't know if that's a great analogy, but he's just never lived up to the hype. He's always been more of a name than he ever should have been. But he had a big week. He had over 100 yards receiving and almost had that big touchdown to end the game, where then all of a sudden they got like 5 or 6 extra tries at scoring a touchdown. That was one of the craziest segments I've seen in a game in a long time. But like I said, A.J. Derby, I think he could go out there and have a nice game for the Broncos. They need him to take a little pressure off, open up that middle a little bit more, and just be a weapon for this team again.
Yeah, good pick. He needs to show up. The Broncos, he had that good game against the Raiders a couple weeks ago, but Siemian needs all the help he can get. And he hasn't really been utilizing that tight end. I mean, he missed that one against Virgil Green last week that almost made me pull out my hair. I literally felt like I aged 20 years after that terrible throw. That would have been a touchdown, I think. I mean, Virgil Green's a decent athlete. That guy was so open.
He had at least like 10 yards of separation.
Yeah.
So to underthrow him that bad where almost it should have been intercepted.
Yeah.
To go from, for sure, easy touchdown, it really doesn't get much easier for a pass. I don't know. That was the play that I'm just going, this cannot be our guy moving forward.
Yeah.
But he gets another week, and we can get into that a little bit more maybe here in a little bit. But Trevor Siemian, this has to be his last opportunity, right? If he has a bad game, can you really put him out there the next week too? I
mean, they might keep putting him out there until Paxton Lynch is healthy.
That's true.
That's what it feels like. That's honestly what it feels like. I mean, is Brock going to be worse than this? Trevor Siemian, when he was playing well at the beginning of the year, better quarterback than what I saw from Brock, at least last season. But this Trevor Siemian right now just looks shell-shocked. PTSD, mechanics are wacky, throwing stupid footballs off his back foot. I mean, he just is seeing ghosts, and he's regressed. He wasn't great before, but he's regressed. So, I don't know. I feel like the next 3 games are incredibly tough. I mean, at Kansas City Monday night with the Chiefs having 10 days to prepare coming off back-to-back losses. Let's be real. This is going to take a miracle game to win. This is almost to the proportions of people doubting the Giants coming to Denver and then the Giants ended up winning. That's the type of awe I would be in if the Broncos end up winning this game solidly, because the Chiefs, there's just so many factors favoring the Chiefs in this game.
There is. And so, yeah, Simeon, he's got his back against the wall. One of the worst situations where he's got such a huge game to try to prove himself, going into one of the hardest stadiums to go into and win with one of the loudest crowds in the entire NFL. A great team that he's going to be going against. This divisional game. I mean, there's just so many things playing into this that are going to be putting pressure on him to go out there and have success. And on top of that, pretty sure we've had a lot of players calling him out this entire week. There's been a lot of passive-aggressive interviews done by defensive players or things put on Twitter. It's been kind of a crazy week. And so he's got a great opportunity to go quiet some people here, but I have my doubts that he'll be able to do it. I hope he does. You and I both, we've been cheering for Simeon to prove us wrong. We want him to. That means the Broncos are successful.
Yeah.
But right now he's just proven exactly all the concerns that we had in him going into this season. All the things that we were worried that he showed last year that everybody kept saying, oh, it was the offensive line. Oh, it was Kubiak and what's his name for the Bills right now? Coaching up, having horrible game plans, and Dennison. Yeah, see, now you're my name guy. There you go.
Yeah.
And everybody kept putting all these blames on everybody but Simeon last year. And then he comes out, new coaching staff, a lot of new players, and I still hear some of the same excuses going on. But at some point, we got to sit here and say, Simeon, this is who you are. This is the book on you. And you and I both know that we've heard from other teams. Other teams know when they're game planning for the Broncos that it's going to be easy to figure out exactly what Simeon wants to do or what the team's trying to do on a given play. And that just puts you so far behind on the play to have success when they already know what you're going to try to do. We could spend a whole episode talking about all of that, but we'll move on here. Maybe give a little bit of a game plan mode of how the Broncos maybe could beat the Chiefs. And we'll start with the Broncos offense against the Chiefs defense. And I'm just going to start off. I'm going to come out in big packages for this one. I'm going to give the offensive tackles some help with tight ends. I'm going to bring out Hireman. I'm going to bring out Green to be my extra blockers. And I'm just going to work to try to pound it down their throats. I'm going to say, you're going to stick 8 men in the box. We're going to have 7 offensive linemen. We're going to have a fullback. And we're just going to go man on man, hat on hat, see who wins this battle, and just hope that maybe you can take the crowd out of it a little bit. I went back and watched that Pittsburgh game. Now, we don't have any kind of Le'Veon Bell on our team, of course. We don't have a Ben Roethlisberger to threaten with the pass, but I just feel like that was how you win in Arrowhead. You just keep just pounding the football over and over and over again, and just hope that your running backs can really keep moving the football, because I feel like you can push this defensive line back. You talked about it with Chris Jones. One of his biggest things is he sometimes can get stood up and pushed back. And with the Chiefs, that's just something that I see with this entire defense is they can get pushed back. And that takes Justin Houston out of his go-to of being that great pass rusher. Dee Ford is not great against the run. Their cornerbacks are not great tacklers, I would say. And without Eric Berry, because Eric Berry, I would say healthy, is the best safety in the NFL. That's just my personal opinion, because he is so great in coverage. He is a hard hitter. He's great in coming down and helping in the run game. He's that great leader on the field. Just everything you'd want in a safety, Eric Berry is that. Without him, they have a lot of problems. And so for me, I'm just going to, like I said, I'm kind of like Vance Joseph. Let's just simplify. You block that guy in front of you. Let's bring out the big guns, and let's just push these guys straight back.
Well, I like that a lot. That's something that I think they should be trying to do. Maybe we should bring back Tim Tebow for that 2 completion game that he had. where they threw it, what was it, 5 times, and they won that game. I mean, that's the game plan right there, and that got to win an Arrowhead.
I was reading a stat the other day, and they were talking about that there's been 3 quarterbacks, and I think in like the last 20 years, that has won a game with a quarterback completing 4 or less passes. John Fox has been the coach of all 3 games.
Foxball, man, it's a thing.
Hey, if it works,
honestly,
it works.
Those Tebow offenses were better than what we have right now.
It's true.
Tebow's not a better quarterback than Trevor Siemian, though. Not a passer, at least. I don't know. It's bad, but let's not go crazy here. I don't know. Maybe he is. God, it's been a while since I've watched Tebow tape, but those games, I still don't get it. We were tanking for Andrew Luck or Robert Griffin III. Let's be completely honest. If you don't know that by now, then shame on you. That was obvious, I think. But they won in spite of it. But my plan for the Chiefs, when they're on offense, I am going to be using Tyreek Hill to take the top off, get him in space, especially get the Broncos linebackers moving horizontally because they do not have great speed in the inside linebacker positions. And Shaq Barrett's been crashing in a little bit. I actually think his run defense has suffered a little bit. I don't know if it's because he's trying to make more happen, get those sacks, a little bit of edge contain the last few weeks. And with the Chiefs having that offense where you can run that reverse with Hill and everybody has to flow to him, that can be an issue. Also, of course, using Travis Kelce and Hunt in the pass game. Like I've said every week, that's a big Bronco weakness. And just trusting Alex Smith. Alex Smith doesn't turn the ball over. Use your legs, create opportunities, be smart with the football. Don't turn it over because I don't think the Broncos offense is good enough to win unless they are given good field position, and that only happens with turnovers from the Chiefs offense.
I like it. Yeah, it just makes too much sense.
It's simple.
Honestly.
It's really
simple.
simple.
It is. It's very simple, and it works. Chiefs have done it all year, and it's worked well for them. So might as well stick with what's been working.
Yeah.
Offense has not been the problem for them.
Nope, not at all. And for the Chiefs on defense, I'm going to be playing a lot of cover 2, shell, making sure that the Broncos are, Trevor Siemian, he tells you everything with his eyes. Why even play man coverage? You don't have to have your back to him. Watch his eyes. He does a pretty good job using his head to get rid of that single high safety. At least he was at the beginning of the year. I'm not so sure recently. But with those guys in the flats especially, or the deeper zones outside the hash marks, that's where he gets killed. And he will tell you with his eyes where he's going. So I'm playing zone, thinking that the Broncos don't have what it takes to create the big plays or push the ball down the field consistently. And Marcus Peters, I'm thinking that guy is going to make some plays. So that's what I'm doing with the Chiefs. I'm getting pressure on Siemian, taking away the run, playing some zone, keeping my eyes on him because eventually I think that he's going to make a mistake, and I got a chance to take it back for points.
Okay. Well, for the Broncos defense, I think I'm honestly starting Jamal Carter at the other linebacker spot this game. Zaire Anderson, he's not been the same player since that concussion. Maybe he's better now that he's been on the bench, hasn't played a whole lot, but I don't trust him. And with the speed of this Chiefs offense, I just feel better with Jamal Carter on the field, even if he is smaller. I guess I just trust that with having D'Amato Pecco playing as well as he is in front of him, that Pecco's going to be able to occupy space and Carter's going to be able to use that speed, or Will Parks, either one. I'm fine with either one because they both have a similar skill set. I just think Carter has a little bit more athleticism to kind of keep up with Kelce and Hunt coming out of the backfield and things like that. But I'm going to actually go ahead and start him for this game. Go a little bit smaller and just not let Kelce and then also Tyreek Hill. I'm going to shadow a safety his way the entire game. You can't let that guy get deep on you. You can't let him beat you with one play like he's done to so many teams this year. And then with my linebackers, I'm telling them to play a little bit more contained this week because Alex Smith, he loves to get to that edge. He has had, like you said earlier, with the Chiefs offensive line, I think the Broncos offensive line is more talented. But Alex Smith has been incredible at his pocket awareness, his ability to buy time by sneaking out to the side or his threat with the run game or with his ability to run. It's just been incredible. So I'm not trying to just blow the guy off the ball to go make a play because you're giving him an easy lane to escape the pocket. And Tyreek Hill, you give that guy an extra second to go get open, he's going to get open. I don't care if you have double coverage. He's going to get open. So, again, I'm trying to play a little bit more contained, keep Alex Smith in the pocket, make him a little bit more uncomfortable. Plus, with the contain, you're working to not lose the edge. So say they run that end around like you were talking about earlier with Shaq Barrett trying to crash inside. I'm telling them, hey, don't do that this game. You can't do that this game. You're going to lose if you do that. They're going to notice that, and they're going to try to exploit it. And then I'm also working. Here's the last thing I'm telling my players. Every chance you get a chance to hit these guys, you hit them. So they run that option. Heck, if you know even that Hunt has the ball, and I'm not trying to say play dirty here, but this is what you set yourself up for. When you play this option football, you're going to get some extra opportunities to get some hits on the quarterback. So remind them that you're there. Kelsey, like you talked about earlier, you can get into his head. Get some extra little hits in on him. Let him know that you're there to rough him up a little bit. I'm not saying get dirty. I'm not trying to say injure them or anything like that. You can make them just remember that you're there. Those are little things that you try to do with teams like this. And every once in a while, you might get them a little bit off their game and have them make a mistake. That's what you're trying to do. Chiefs don't make a lot of mistakes, but maybe you can just get them a little bit off their game and make that game-changing play.
Yeah, that's what you got to hope for. You got to get in their heads, especially with Kelsey. And you don't want to play dirty, but you want to play physical. I mean, this is number 2 ranked offense coming, and the Broncos have a defense that has to play nearly perfectly, and they got to set the tone. And they can do that. I mean, force some big hits. I mean, have the Broncos forced a fumble yet this season? I don't think they have. If they have forced one, it's been recovered by the other team. I do not think they have a single fumble recovery yet. So big hits, strip the ball, be aggressive. Defense has to come to play. The Broncos are going to win this game. They have to come to play. And they got it against them. They got everything stacked against them. Vegas is going to be against them. Rough environment. Chiefs are going to be playing angry. But anything can happen with a good defense, especially with a guy like Von Miller. One strip sack, one defensive touchdown, the entire game can change. So we'll see what happens. But now we got to go on to the what to watch for. And last week, you had the quarterback position, and that did not work out very well. I'll give you a chance to talk about that. But I went with turnovers again, and they lost 3-0 again. 2 fumbles and a terrible interception, and another 2 passes that should have been an interception by Trevor Siemian. Just stupid decision making. Come on. So that I'm not going to lament too much about that. But quarterback position.
Yeah, I was really shocked that they didn't go to Osweiler. I really thought this would be the game, and Vance Joseph kept talking about, well, it's just a 2-score game. How can we make the change? Well, because your offense is doing jack squat. We didn't make it to the 50-yard line until the second half? Something like that? I mean, you got to do something. And I know people are going, well, what is Osweiler really that much better than Siemian? I don't think so. But it's the easiest change you can make that can maybe cause a little bit of a spark, because they haven't game planned to stop Osweiler. They haven't game planned with the plays that he likes to run, because Osweiler likes to run a little bit different skill set than what Trevor Siemian likes to run. It's just the way that it is. And I remember when Osweiler came in for Peyton Manning, and he did decently. I mean, he wasn't great by any means. I think he got a little bit overhyped because the team was winning, but there were some things that he was doing that Peyton Manning wasn't. And teams had to learn to game plan a little bit differently. Like I said earlier with the Giants game, part of the reason the defense was playing a little bit slow was because how do you game plan against wide receivers that you don't even know what routes they like to run? None of them had hardly even played in the NFL. So you're having to go back and try to find a little bit of college film on these guys and hope you can see something. Just kind of the way it is. And so I think Osweiler coming in that game maybe could have caused a little bit of a spark. So I'm a little bit disappointed in the coaches not making that change. And Trevor Siemian getting the start this week, I don't know. I mean, I kind of understand, like, you don't want to completely destroy your young quarterback. You want to show him that you have a little bit of confidence in him and maybe get that little bit of boost of, hey, coach believes in me. I got to go out there and prove the coach right. Maybe something like that. But I just think Trevor Siemian's too far gone. You talked about it earlier with he's just hearing ghosts. There's times where the pocket is completely clean, and he's throwing it before the receiver even thinks about making his break. He's just throwing it away, and he's got a clean pocket. He could have held on to the ball another second or two and been fine. But his internal clock is so far off. When there is pressure, like when it comes quickly, he doesn't see it. When he has time, he doesn't see it. I don't know. There's so much wrong with his game right now, and I just think he's too far gone. So big week for him. I just don't see it, but maybe.
Yeah,
I'm an optimist.
Yeah, usually. You are. More so than me.
Yeah. But this week I picked whichever cornerback has the matchup against Tyreek Hill, because he truly is the most electrifying player in the NFL. Every time he touches that football, it could be a touchdown. And so you can't let up for one play. And I'm sure that the Chiefs will be trying to move him around a little bit and get that great matchup. And so whoever has him, you got to learn not only that you have to cover for that 3 seconds, but because Alex Smith can move around, you got to even cover longer than that. So I'm just interested to see that matchup and to see how they do in containing Tyreek Hill, because watching that guy, I don't like him. I don't like his history, anything like that, but he is an electrifying player. I understand why the Chiefs took him. When you add that to your offense, it just changes everything.
Yeah, I don't like him either, but he is a definite freak athlete. Yeah, and fastest guy, most explosive guy in the NFL. So they're going to have to watch out for that. And whatever cornerback goes against him, good luck. You're going to need some speed. I honestly don't know which one you put against him, because there's not really a cornerback in the NFL that can keep up with him, at least when he's given a little bit of time, because that dude is just, he's a freak. He's a freak. There's no other way to put it. For me, I went with third down offense. The Broncos started off the year with one of the better third down offenses in the NFL. I think they were completing nearly 40% of their third down offense. Good job by the running game on first and second down, making third down manageable, and the Broncos were chugging along, making offense look great and giving me hope that the Broncos offense maybe turned the corner. But not, as Lee Corso would say, not so fast, my friend. Broncos' third down offense has been absolutely pathetic the last 3 weeks. They are the 30th ranked third down offense over the last 3 games at a 27.66%. Only the Bears and the Browns are worse than them right now. So it's not good. It's not good for that third down offense. And if the Broncos want to help that defense, they need the offense to hold on to that football. Way too many 3-and-outs, way too many drives falling out way too early, and just terrible field position. So if the Broncos can help themselves by just playing a little bit better on third down and converting some third downs, controlling the football, keeping the defense on the sideline, giving them a break, and just helping the field position out, that should make a world of difference. But right now, that trend is bad for third down offense for the Broncos. So we'll see what happens there. Now, before we get out of here, we want to say thank you to our sponsor, Audible. Get a free audiobook download and a 30-day free trial at www.audibletrial.com/huddleup. Over 180,000 titles to choose from on your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. Again, that's www.audibletrial.com/huddleup. Now, before we get out of here, Carl, last segment, predictions. What do you think the score is going to be?
I've been wavering back and forth throughout this entire episode because, like I said earlier, I'm that eternal optimist, and thinking that when the team has their back against the wall, somehow they just rise up and surprise the NFL. And then I remember, oh man, I don't know how they're going to do it. But I think Jamal Charles goes and has a big game, gets the team a little pumped up, gets them a little bit of spark going. And I actually have Broncos winning this one 21-17.
Wow. Well, you had the technical difficulties last week where you had to drop out, and I predicted a win from your perspective. I did both of us just because I needed to balance out. And thank God you are balancing us out again. I have the Broncos losing 24-10. I don't see the offense getting enough traction. I see Simeon throwing a couple picks, and I see season really is just starting to fall apart. We're going to have to start looking ahead to the offseason. Now, I've been surprised before. The defense is great. It's a top 3 defense in the NFL. Shane Ray's going to be back, and crazier things have happened in Arrowhead. That's for damn sure. But I don't know. This team just doesn't feel like they have it. They just don't feel like they have it, especially on offense. I feel like they're already at a breaking point this early in the season. And I wanted to give Simeon a chance and the offensive line a chance. I'm still of the opinion the offensive line is not as bad as the average fan is claiming, at least league average-wise, because offensive line play is not great across the league right now. But I just think this is the game where things really start to crack. I mean, we're on, like I mentioned earlier, at Kansas City, at Philadelphia versus New England. That looks like very easily could be a 5-game losing streak. So Broncos haven't had back-to-back losing seasons in a while, so if they have one this year, at least it means that they're going to be great next year. But this game probably determines what type of team this is the rest of the season. If they can sneak one out here, they got a chance for the division. If they lose this one, hopes are going to be down. Not just for me, but a team and in the fan base. So we'll see what happens. Now, last thing before we totally close out here, I did want to touch on my boy, Taven Bryan. He did not play this week. if you guys are unaware yet, if you follow me on Twitter, you know that I have a massive crush on Florida defensive lineman Taven Bryan. He wears number 93. I am very draft-oriented person, and I know the Broncos are playing themselves to the point where they might need quarterback or maybe even another offensive lineman, although offensive tackle class does not look that great. If you're watching college football, there's not many reasons to watch Florida football these days. They're not that great. But Taven Bryan is, I mean, honest to God, they call him mini J.J. Watt, and I do not know why he's not getting more media hype yet. That guy's game against Texas A&M was dominating from an interior defensive lineman. When you watch interior defensive line or even offensive line, you'll watch guys for consistent play, and they'll make the play here and there, but you rarely see that many splash plays from a guy on the inside, at least. And that dude was just incredible. And I know I got you over there, Carl, starting to believe the Taven Bryan hype, at least that I'm starting to promote, and national media is starting to pick up on. I mean, I've seen some of those national media people like my tweet, share my Taven Bryan tweets, because I don't want to claim, hashtag first, but I think this guy is a special talent.
Well, you have to remember last year, how many of our guys did we hype up, and then like within 2 weeks, all the national guys are hyping them up?
Yeah, it's coming.
So that's kind of how it goes. We see you and I start a lot earlier than a lot of other people on draft stuff. And I was kind of, and this guy was already getting hyped up for me because I usually like to watch the wide receivers first, just because that's my position.
Yeah.
And somebody had asked the question of who's your number one wide receiver in this draft, and I said Calvin Ridley, and then I saw like 4 national media guys go, "Hey, Calvin Ridley, he's my top wide receiver," and I'm going, come on. And but yeah, he's one of my favorites. He's my dream. Kind of like Brian is for the defensive line for you, because that's your bread and butter. Calvin Ridley is my wide receiver dream. Just his speed, his quickness, his route running. I'm a huge stickler for route running.
Yeah.
Which really stinks when I'm watching college tape, because I'm going, these guys are such terrible route runners. Do they realize how much better they could be? How much more teams would want to draft them if they could have great route running? It drives me nuts. But he has great route running to get himself open in a hurry. I watched him on one play. He blew by the defender so quickly that it actually put the defender in a better position, because he was running a comeback route. And the defender was so far behind that when he stopped to try to turn back, the defender was right there. And it just, that kind of athleticism you just don't see very often in a wide receiver. So I would love that guy in the slot for the Broncos, but there's so many other key positions that I know first round that they're going to be looking at. Wide receivers probably 5th, 6th, 7th on the list of needs. So I just have my doubts that they would go that direction unless they really hit on some areas in free agency or trade, one of the two. But no, I love Brian. I love what I've seen out of him. You've made me a believer. And Bronco fans, if you get a chance to go check him out from Florida, man, he is well worth the watch, because he's electrifying. For a defensive lineman, like you talked about, you can get bored watching him sometimes, because there'll be like a whole quarter or a half where they just do nothing. They just run into the guy in front of them. Oh, play over. Okay, let's move on to the next one. No, you just expect something out of him every single play.
Yeah. There was one drive where he literally did every single play in the drive as a defensive lineman. He had a pressure, a tackle for a loss, and then a sack. 3 plays in a row from an interior defensive lineman. I mean, that's when you see Derek Wolfe make a sack, you get excited about it. Imagine Derek Wolfe making 3 big splash plays behind the line of scrimmage in a row. You just don't see that. So I'm expecting Taven Bryan to get a lot of hype here very soon. And he literally just screams Bill Collar to me. Dude's from Montana. His dad is a former Navy SEAL and a volunteer firefighter. And they call him mini J.J. Watt. I mean, I'm in love. I know we need a quarterback. I know we need offensive line help. But you can never have enough good interior defensive linemen, especially ones that can get after the quarterback. We're really struggling with that right now. And I think Taven is special. I really think he's special. So,
isn't he from Wyoming?
Yes, he's from Wyoming. I always get those two confused. Sorry to my Wyoming and Montana listeners. I should know that. I'm kicked out of the Taven Bryan fan club. I failed the entrance exam. I still love you, Taven, though. So, that will wrap up the Week 8 Huddle Up Preview podcast. The Broncos find themselves in about as big of a do-or-die football game as you can find this early in the season as they travel to Arrowhead, with both teams coming off 2 losses in a row. So, huge game for both teams, and playing at Arrowhead with the Chiefs having 10 days to prepare, it's rough. It's about as tough as it gets. So this could be the breaking point of the Broncos season. Either way, it could totally define what happens the rest of the season. You can find Carl on Twitter at Carl Dumler MHH and myself at Nick Kendell MHH, as well as find our Denver Bronco articles on Mile High Huddle on the CBS Sports Digital Network. Now, pretty soon, Carl and I will be getting back into the the draft podcasts coming up here. Chad doesn't know that yet. I don't know if he's going to love that, but we've had at least I've had some call-outs on Twitter that people are starting to want to look ahead to the draft, getting a little bit frustrated with the team. And, it's always good to look ahead. And talking with Scout affiliate, Eric Trickle, maybe we'll have a quarterback podcast coming up here. How does that sound, Carl?
I love it. Yeah, I was watching Lamar Jackson earlier today.
Ooh,
and he was against Florida State. He had some big plays, some throws into some tight windows that I would love to see in Denver.
Yeah, he is. I know he's going to be one of the most polarizing quarterback prospects we've seen in a while. But I mean, with how boring the offense has been for the Broncos, forgive me. How fun would Lamar Jackson be? Just fireworks. Just fireworks. I mean, he's incredible. Every time he touches the football, throwing it, he's become a better passer. We'll save it for that podcast, but
yep.
Lamar Jackson's fun. He's definitely somebody that's intriguing me more and more every week, especially with how he's improved as a passer. You can follow Huddle Up Podcast by subscribing to us on iTunes and for Android users, Stitcher. We also have audio up on YouTube that you can check out and leave comments. We try to get back to you on there as best we can. Please stop by, leave a rating and a comment on iTunes and Stitcher. We'd love to hear feedback from you guys. It makes us, what we're doing good, what we can do better. And you can say that my voice is annoying or that it annoys you that Carl doesn't remember names all the time. Whatever works for you. We talk too much about the draft. We're Simeon haters, if you want to say. I like to think we're decently realistic. I want Simeon to succeed because that means we can take Tavin Bryan in the first next year. That's the best case scenario for me. But, it is what it is. You can also follow us on Twitter at Mile High Huddle and at Huddle Up Pod. Again, please be sure to subscribe and rate us and reach out to us. For Carl Dumler, I'm Nick Kendell, wrapping up another episode of the Scout's Eye Preview Huddle Up Podcast. We hope you enjoyed it, and we will see you next week. Go Broncos.
Mile High Huddle.